Hi, friends. It's another episode of Tiger Talks with your boy, Nick Tiger Quay. Today, we have a very special guest, Scott Baste. Scott's a badass, and he's the one I've been telling you all about. Paddled 1,000 miles on a stand-up paddleboard in 8 days with bears and shit. Unbelievable. It's not Superman, it's Scott Baste. Let's hear a little bit for Scott. Scott, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Nick.
You didn't think you were getting an intro like that, did you?
No, I wasn't ready for that at all.
Well, you know, Scott and I were just talking about authenticity, and that's how I met Scott. I'll get into a really quick version of how I met him. I've been an avid paddleboarder for many years, and Scott is known all over the state, if not the country and part of the world now, as a huge paddleboard guru. And, you know, the way I met Scott was I was looking for a life jacket for my dog and went to a few shops, had a really bad experience, and I went to Scott's shop. And when I said I'm shopping for a life jacket for my dog, he looks at me and he goes, "Well, where the hell's your dog?" And I'm like, "Outside with the windows down." And he's like, "Bring her in." So I bring her in, I'm holding her in my hand, and he's like, "What are you doing? She's a dog. Let her run around. Dogs run around." And anyway, the point is his authenticity and the genuineness and just his whole approach to life, it really got my attention right away. Soon after that, started renting boards from Scott, became friends with Scott. And it's been a really amazing experience having you in my life. So you also got me into racing. I'll tell that story in a little bit. Do you want to give us 30 seconds of who you are today and kind of why you're here, Scott?
So I've been a lifelong racer. I've raced everything in the world, starting with swimming and canoes when I was a kid. And you know, I was a longtime cyclist and raced bicycles for most of my life. And when I moved down to South Florida, all of a sudden there's nowhere to ride bicycles much except for our highway out here, but we do have all this nice water out there. So I started paddling a lot, and I've become a passionate paddler. And you know, I love going out, and I love sharing with people too, because what we have here in the Keys is so unique and so special. There's just not a lot of places where you can go paddle all day long and see the bottom and see lots and lots of wildlife, you know, and it's just to me, it's the best way to spend my day is by sharing this awesome opportunity with people, and paddling brings people together, and it gets people healthy and out on the water.
That's my favorite way to start my day. Whenever I'm having one of those weeks, and you know, sometimes I get the comment from my girlfriend or loved ones, "Hey, I really think you should go paddle tomorrow morning." Well, let me tell you why. I wake up at 5 a.m. I'm out there at sunrise, and you know, as Scott said, it's just the most beautiful feeling in the world. And a lot of us have Scott to thank for this. You know, he's been a huge inspiration to many of us in paddleboarding, a sport ambassador across the board. Not to mention, got a lot of us into racing. I'll tell you the quick story of how I got into racing with Scott. After I met him and I'd been to the shop a few times, I was renting boards. I was in the Keys every weekend mostly. So I'd rent a board from Scott for the weekend. One day he goes, "Hey, you know, Nick, be at my house tomorrow at 7 a.m. I'm like, "All right, yeah, okay. You know, we're going to paddle. All right, I'm going to paddle with this shop owner. Well, okay, what do I do?" So I show up by 6:58, and he's already in the water pacing back and forth like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? Grab your stuff, get in the water, let's go." I was like, oh, he meant like, you know, leave at 7. Anyway, long story short, it throws me on a racing board, 14-foot long board, never been on one before. Don't think I'd ever paddled more than a mile or two at once. And he just, you know, talks to me down the canal for a couple minutes, and then the open bay hits, and he just kind of, I was like, "Let me do it." He's like, "Come on, keep up." Paddles all the way. We did like 5 miles that day, Scott, or something like that, 4.5.
Yeah.
Maybe less. It seemed like 20 to me at the time.
Yeah.
Let's call it 5 for the sake of the story. But no, so however many miles it was probably 3 times the distance I'd ever paddled. Went out around the island, lost him in my sight at one point, come back, he circles around. He's like, "Meet me back at the dock." So then I realized for the first time when I circle around the island that you really have to pay a lot of attention to where you came from and how to get back. And this isn't just a story about paddleboarding. It's a story about life and a story about business. But let me tell you, I get back and I'm paddling to the shore, and I'm like, there's all these big houses, and a lot of them have American flags. And the one we paddled past had an American flag. I finally find that I get back to Scott's dock at the house, and he looks at me and he goes, "Meet me at the shop." I was like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." So I was like, okay. So I get the board out, I go, and he zips off. And I called my girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, I think I'm in trouble. Anyway, I get to the shop, and he looks at me, and he's like, hey, congratulations, you're a racer. Take that board. You're racing in my race in 2 weeks. Something like that. And that's the story of how I got into paddleboard racing. But it's not just my story, Scott. A lot of us have talked. A lot of our other friends have gotten into the sport the same way. So like I said, Scott's been a guy that's been inspirational, gets you to do some things way out of the box that you never thought you were capable of. Speaking of things that we never thought we were capable of, Scott, you paddled 1,000 miles in the Arctic Circle on a stand-up paddleboard in like 8 days and 14 hours. So you averaged 114 miles a day.
Pretty much, yeah. We had a few days when we did like 140.
Are you what? Okay, hold on. So I'm still having a hard time with this. Who out there thinks anybody can paddle 140 miles in a day, 8 days in a row? This guy, or I guess you're on this side. But what was that like? I mean, first off, making the decision, I'm sure your wife probably had a small panic attack. I mean, she knows you by now, so she knows you're the kind of guy to do those things. But what was that like, deciding to take such an epic journey that less than 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of the world will ever even be able to think of?
I think to me, the thing was, I've always been somebody who tries to push up against what my mind tells me I can and can't do. And so I decided that since that was the biggest thing available at the time, that would be the best way to push up against it. I've done other big paddles before, and it wasn't like this is my first time out, but it definitely was my first time going that far. You know, more than twice as far as my longest paddle before that. Actually, about 3 times as far as.
Yeah, you've done a 300, is that right?
340 and a couple of 300s, yeah. So,
wow.
But the Alaska thing was different because we started in Canada, so we had to go, you know, have our passports and check out and check in, and of course the bears were a concern, as well as other wildlife. Moose are actually probably as dangerous as bears. We had a closer encounter with a moose than we do with any bears. So
moose seems pretty scary. I mean, I've seen moose try to knock over cars, so that seems.
Yeah, moose. We had one swim out in front of us and got real close to Chip's board before we kind of like yelled at it to turn around. And then when it turned around, it was like its hooves were like, you know, all the way out of the water, and it was doing this. It could have just busted one of those paddle boards in half.
I mean, a moose, for all you that don't know, they're, what are they, 10 or 8
bigger than a cow.
Yeah, but they're about 1,000 pounds or bigger probably. It's big.
Yeah, I don't know. They're big. Yeah, they probably are 1,000 pounds. Yeah, they probably are, every bit of it.
They're big enough to tip over a pickup truck. And you're paddleboarding and you see this moose coming through the water with these massive bullwinkle antlers sticking up. What went through your gut? Like, what was your first reaction other than paddle really fast?
Well, I was more worried. Chip was closer to it, so I was kind of more worried for him because he seemed to be like not taking enough evasive action that I thought, you know, like I'm like going wide and he's going towards the moose. Now, if you have a GoPro or something, I guess that's a good idea, but he wasn't filming. He was just like, I don't know if he even saw the moose until it started to get really close. And then it was, I don't think you really realized what a formidable foe a moose could be at that time, but that was pretty dicey, and we yeah, it was just, the whole trip was kind of like that. It was interesting being with somebody else for that long as well, you know, somebody you're not married to.
So listen, because we're trying to relate this to people's lives today, how can you relate those moments? And I know that, well, I haven't heard your story, but I've done some paddles with Scott. And, you know, there was one that we'll talk about in a little while, the 45 mile an hour downwinder, 30 miles from the Everglades to the Keys. A lot of us went out and 3 of us got in the water and actually stayed in the water and did the trip. But I've had a moment where I literally have to stop and I'm shaking, and it's like, I pray and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But I get that guidance and I realize, okay, I'm in a safe place. Well, not really, but I'm safe because I'm here with Scott. So Scott makes you feel safe. But more importantly is I can do this. And the only choice that I had in those moments, Scott, was to tell myself there is no pausing. I mean, you remember this in a downwind, there is no timeout. There is no stop in the middle of the bay. You can't, you have 35, 40 mile an hour wind pushing you. There's no stopping. The only option is to get to the finish line. Sometimes you don't even know where we're going to land on the shore, but we know we're going to land on shore eventually. Thanks for telling me that now. But anyway, so what I want to know from you over the 1,000 miles, I mean, you know, just like in life, just like dealing with COVID-19, just like dealing with difficulties in our health and our relationships and on our businesses, what's a couple of lessons that you can take from your 1,000-mile journey that changed your life or that gave you insight that you can share with others today about how they can do their 1,000-mile paddle and get through and get to the end?
That's a great question, because it's not a 1,000-mile paddle for everybody. For some people, it's doing something that they've never done before, or doing something that they've been told they can't do, or doing something that they believe that they can't do. And for me, the 1,000 miles is really about pushing up against what is possible in our brains versus what's possible with our bodies. And that most of the time our brains, or I shouldn't say all of us, but I think a lot of people, myself included, my brain tends to be the thing that kind of limits me from doing what I really want to do, the biggest, greatest things that I can attain. And so pursuing that 1,000-mile goal was very important to me for that, and for sticking with it. And the same thing, there was no out. It was, well, we could have gotten out, but it would have been super duper expensive. It would have been, you know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get out of this thing in the middle. So you have to complete it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then you're with somebody who you don't know very well. I mean, luckily we meshed really well together, but some teams didn't do as good as others. And just sticking with it, and then pursuing something that was way beyond what most people would think would be a logical thing to do, and just, you know, getting to the finish.
I mean, I think you just said it. It's getting to the finish. Now, just out of curiosity, but before you went into this, as you were preparing for this challenge in your life, were you focused more on the journey, or were you focused more on the experience, or more on the finish line?
The journey. For me, it's all about the journey. I spent, and as well for my other big events that I do, I spend probably 10 times more time planning and you know, getting ready, preparing, and packing and repacking and all that, and going over my gear and going over the route. But it's, you know, so that when it comes time to execute that plan, that everything kind of falls in place. Of course, things are not going to go according to plan, but if you don't have any plan, then they're just going to happen however they happen. So if you have a plan and a couple of backups, then you have somewhere to go to when things kind of go sideways, which they almost always do.
So how have you, you know, do you think that you took other life lessons and things from your business life and other things and brought that into your racing, or do you think it's been the other way around, or a little bit of both?
I think both. I think racing, for me, racing has always been a thing that, like, you know, I started when I was a young child. My mother was a waterfront instructor, so she taught me to swim.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
Yeah, I know we've talked about that before.
We have so many similarities.
We both have cool moms, for one thing.
Yeah, thank you. My mom's watching. Hi, Mom. Scott says hi.
She forced me to, I shouldn't say forced, but she taught me to swim when I was young, taught me to canoe. And then we, you know, part of swimming, you're on the swim team, you know, and so we would swim competitively. And then from there, it was just a lifelong love of racing. And it's not about, for me, it's not about going out and beating other people. It's about challenging myself to do the best I can. And when you're racing, you're always tuning your technique,
your stroke, your form, technique.
Yeah, to perform better. And then the neat thing about racing, especially smaller sports, I was in mountain biking and sailboats and you know, car racing and stuff, is that it's a group of people that you get to know over time. And so you're not just out trying to beat somebody this week or next week. And yeah, there is a little of that as well. But it's about the camaraderie of getting together and everybody getting better together, you know, and going out there and trying out their gear, your gear, finding what works, swapping around, and moving forward.
I mean, you said it. You know, I remember one of the big memories I have of you. Well, a lot. I mean, I actually have some of your old boards, but I remember, you know, one good example of that and how the sport changes, and in a small sport, whether it's a small business environment, a small group of friends, a small network, a community, however it is, I think that we can all learn from each other. And you've been such a leader, a mentor, and a teacher, and someone that always is willing to go out and try different things. I mean, the amount of different boards and the cuts on your paddle, if you guys at home don't know, watching this now, the paddle length does make a significant difference. And when I first started racing, when I got into it, the rule of thumb was that you want your arm extended all the way, and with the paddle on the floor, that's where you want the top of the handle of the paddle to be. Well, now the rule is this. So now it's do the shaka, put it on top and around your pinky. That's roughly where you want the handle to be. Well, that's about at least, I don't know, 10 to 12 inch difference, at least on me being 6'2". So it's interesting how over time we learn this, and a lot of us learn this from you, even though, you know, you let us try your paddles and this, and we cut them down together, and we're always learning, and what's the best gear? How do we be safer? You know, whether it's through learning by experimenting or learning by, you know, kind of trial by fire. We've had some things happen in our community that our community had to respond to that's made us all safer, and we've made some choices. And I remember one moment when you talk about trying gear, Andres Pombo, the one that got me into coaching Special Olympics, who's one of our favorite racers of all time, God rest his soul, had this rocket ship from Italy, this carbon fiber, 14-foot long. I don't even know how they made this thing. It must have had oil on the bottom. You even dare to stand on this board, and the board just goes flying off from underneath you. And I remember those kind of moments where it's like, oh my goodness, someone's actually riding this thing. And one day I'll be as strong as him or as strong as you, Scott, and I'll be able to ride on the boards. And that's been a big part of this, is having this community to share that with. And speaking of community, and one of the topics of this is community. You know, for those of you that don't know, Scott owns a company called Paddle the Florida Keys. And I can't think of a better example for a brick and mortar local business than what Scott and his team have been able to do at creating a community. And when I say community, all of us on my paddleboard team, on the teams that Scott races on, even Special Olympics, everybody around, Scott's shop has become a hangout. He's a resource for all of us, a resource for equipment, of value. Just sound go out? And he's created such a unique community where we all depend on. And he's got a pretty big following, to the point that now, no matter what he's doing, Scott, is your sound going out? I think he's talking to somebody. But anyways, if anybody create a big community, Scott, do you have any tips? He's at the shop right now, so he is being distracted by his employees. But I want to hear Scott talk about some tips on how we can create communities in our life, whether it's through a sport, a passion, or a business. Scott, did you hear the question? Actually, your sound's out.
Okay, I'm sorry. Say it again.
I got you back. What I was talking about community and how you've built a huge community around paddleboard professionals, elite athletes, tourists, locals alike. We all go to him for our paddleboard needs. We also go to him to paddle with. He does these sunset paddles, day paddles, paddle and pour. Do you have any tips for people at home on how to create a community, either around their passion like you have, and also in a business philosophy set? I know it's two. I mean, did you do it on purpose?
Yeah.
Like, did you set out to create the premier paddle community in South Florida? I never asked you that.
No, well, I didn't. It wasn't like the original plan.
Yeah.
I moved down to the Keys to kind of like, slow down my life and maybe move in towards getting ready for retirement or whatever. And I've been a contractor for most of my life. I've always put teams together with people. Being a contractor, you had subcontractors and you were doing projects together. And I guess I think people are just social too, and they want to be together. And so it just kind of happened organically, and we just started, inviting people to come along because it's just a lot more fun to go out paddling with friends and you know, we do a lot of, like I said, we do a lot of group paddling things. We never charge for that stuff. It's not like it's part of the business. But, you know, people do buy boards and stuff. You know, they come and they try, oh, like, you know, oh, let me try your paddle out. And they go, oh, wow, this is a different experience than what I'm used to. And
every time I come down, I leave with something.
But it's not really what it's not our plan. It's just how things work out, because, you know, we, again, being interested in developing and being the best I can be, and that attracts people who are interested in the same thing, and so they naturally progress as well.
I mean, I think what Scott just said is so important here, because as you progress, they progress, and you have been. I mean, I can't even imagine how many people you've like coached or taught or trained. And let me tell you, paddling with Scott, I've woken up so many days at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock to get down to the Keys just to paddle with this man for an hour, hour and a half, because, you know, first off, I value the conversations that we have on the water. I learn a lot about you and a lot about life as well. But just paddling with him, just watching his stroke and watching the technique, even now versus years ago, what, five years ago now or so, or 6, when you threw me in the water on a racing board the first time. You know, you learn a lot from people like this. And this is one of the things I respect about you a lot is I see this with our friend Seychelle. I mean, my goodness, you put a lot of time into working with her, and I think Dustin and other people at your shop, to make them the best paddler they could be. These people are now #1 in the state. Seychelle, is she still holding the award for fastest woman paddler in the world, or fastest 24-hour paddler in the world? Something like that.
I think she's had both of those titles, as well as some other world championship last year. She won the SUP Tour series or whatever. And yeah.
But the fact that you see that in people, and they put in the time and you put in the time, it's like, I got so much respect for you, because a lot of people won't give others that kind of time, especially knowing that they're here for a period of time. But I like that about you, because, you know, especially living in the Keys, it's seasonal with tourism, but it's also seasonal with people. A lot of people, they're there for a few years and they leave, right? Yeah. So what I like about you is I've seen people come to the shop and leave and come back. You always welcome them back. Yeah. Even sometimes maybe you shouldn't, but you do. No, but I'm just saying that I think I see a lot of this in you as a person, and it's a really good life lesson for all of us, whether it's in business or in personal life, to help those around you grow. And I think that's how we can all become stronger, because the stronger that we are and you help us get stronger, it actually does make you stronger in the end. Plus, we're paddling faster, we're on your heels. Now you got to figure out, shoot, how do I stay in front of Tiger? He keeps on banging my board. I got to get in front of this guy again. And I love that about our sport, just how there's such a community in this. Something else I want to ask you, being that you have a brick and mortar in the Keys, you service people all over South Florida. What have you done to kind of pivot? You know, a lot of people who don't know this, the Keys have kind of been closed. If you're not a business owner or a resident of the Florida Keys, I can't just go down there and paddle with Scott easily right now. So Scott, tell us a couple of things that you've done to kind of pivot in your life and pivot in your business.
Yeah, we live in the biggest gated community in the country right now, I think. And luckily, June 1st, that's going to come down. And so we'll be welcoming people back to the Keys, you know, of course, with our, you know, keeping our face masks on and all that kind of stuff. But what we've done is we've started delivering. So we delivered, I don't know, dozens of paddle boards up into the Miami and actually Fort Lauderdale area as well. So we, you know, people buy, we'll bring them up to your house, or we'll meet you in Homestead. If you want to, you know, pick it up in Homestead, we can do that. We've had a few group paddles. We're going to have another one this Sunday up on Cardstown Road, where people are.
Are you really?
It's outside the roadblock, and it's a really nice place to paddle. And I just put it up on Facebook a little while ago. So
I'm going to be there. Hey, yeah. All you guys, paddleboard with Scott Sunday. We'll drop a pin later, but thanks for giving me the invite.
8 a.m. Be ready to paddle. Don't come.
Yeah. No, hold on. 8 a.m. 8 a.m. means get there at 7:30, screw around with your gear, be in the water at 7:45, 7:50, get ready to go, because Scott's going to leave at 7:57. He's not going to wait till 8. So that's a lesson I learned from you. And what do you have there around your neck? Because Scott, let me tell you, every time I'm going to see my mom, every time I travel to DC to see my mom, my dad, and my sister ever, I always try to make a trip to the shop first to get gear. He has the coolest t-shirts, the coolest hats, like straight out of the Keys, straight out of Key Largo, and the best sun gear. So if you're a boater, kayaker, paddleboard, a beach girl, whatever it is, they always have the best stuff. And now part of your pivoting, part of you trying to pivot in COVID-19, since your brick and mortar isn't so accessible, you're making these amazing face masks. Oh my God. Yes. Look at the paddleboarders. I love it. I want to get a manatee one so bad. There you go.
Well, I got the manatee. I got this is the sunset. Yeah. So yeah, so you can't really hear me talking when I'm wearing it, but this is what you can breathe through it. It's similar to other products on the market. I don't want to mention any brand names because I don't want to get any trademark problems, but everybody's seen this kind of thing before. But these are designed by me or by one of my employees or one of my ex-employees. So they're designed in the Keys, they're inspired by the Keys, and they're actually made and printed in the Keys. So we're right here local, and you know, we're trying to push them out to wherever we can sell them. But so far, South Florida's really responded, and we've sold about 100 so far, I think, and just got a couple hundred more in. So
well, let's try to sell 100 more. I want a manatee one. I'll take one of each.
We say Cover That Mug is the name of the company. We're called Mug Covers. So, you know, because we don't want to infringe on any trademarks. And
I'll put the contact right here for Scott. If you look down below, it's coverthatmug.com. Yeah. I'll put this up again at the end and I'll have it in the chat. But hey, Scott, are you cool to answer some questions? We got some really interesting ones.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. We have a lot of commentary here. When I grow up, I want to be like Scott, just shorter and better looking. Wow, you got some mean friends. Michael. So, Scott, how tall are you? Because I don't think people at home can actually see that.
6'3" now. I used to be 6'4", but
no, you're still like 6'5".
Now, so gravity's working its magic on me, and I'm down to about 6'3" now. So
I don't believe you. Are you really 6'3"? All right, we got a couple questions here. Here's a question from our good friend Pavlina. Pavlina is an athlete that we have both had the pleasure of coaching and working with for several years now. She's an absolute peach, one of the brightest, smiliest people in the world. She wants to. So Pavlina's asking, what was your first experience on the water? Ooh,
well, what about you? I want to say I love you, Pavlina. All right. Second of all, my first experience, my first experience on the water that I can remember was my mom putting me in the pool and letting me blow bubbles. So that
I have the same one.
I was probably like I don't know, 4 or 5 years old or whatever. So I've spent my whole life on the water, in the water. And so I guess that my first experience with paddle boards was pretty interesting. My wife and I were at Nantahala Lake, and we'd just been doing a bicycle ride with a group, mountain bike ride. And one of the people on the ride works for Nantahala Outdoor Center, which is a huge whitewater and outdoor activity center up in North Carolina where we used to live. And he had a couple of these paddleboard things in the back of his truck, and he said, "Do you want to try them?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I mean, I'd seen them, and they didn't seem they seemed pretty dumb to me, honestly. I didn't really get it, you know. And then I got on them, and my wife and I got on them. The first thing we did was ram into each other, trying to knock each other off, you know, because that's the kind of relationship that we have. And didn't really think too much more of it until I got a chance to try them out in the Keys again. And then really from there on, it was just like, I don't even own a kayak anymore. So.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I sold my
kayak. Off with kayaking.
What's that?
So my first experience in the water, I started with kayaking, but my first experience with the water, I'm actually a water baby. There's a picture of me. I guess if you have I don't suggest anybody do this at home, you know, but my mom, when I was a baby, like 3 months old, dropped me in the water. My dad took a picture. Well, I look like the little Nirvana baby, and I'll post this picture later. It's true. I swear to God, it's me. I got the same smile, the big look in my eyes. But my first experience, very similar to Scott. We grew up really similarly with moms that were very active in getting us in the water and teaching us water safety and how to float and swim and all this. So mine was probably blowing bubbles in the bathtub also, or in the pool. For paddleboarding, I was kayaking for years, and I think my first paddleboard experience, it might have been on vacation somewhere, really heavy board, really hard to maneuver, probably didn't even have a fin on it. I didn't like it that much. And then I tried multiple times on the beach, really windy, choppy condition, not the right board. Gear is everything, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't have the right gear, you're not going to have a good experience. With the right gear, you'll have a great experience. But it was something about that. And it wasn't until several years later that I would rent them all the time that I learned actually how to paddle. And we have a few people here. My buddy Craig Rose saying, oh, man, great catch. Scott, like I said, a lot of people here were really inspired that I was able to have you on it and help show part of your story. You know, I love that your mom is your biggest fan. His whole family is absolutely amazing. If you guys haven't met them, you know, she says, hi, it's Scott's mom. Can't wait to see it. Hi, Scott's mom. You know, my mom's my biggest fan too. I love her to death. I think you and I have very similar relationships with our mothers. And I have some more questions here. Yeah, Michael again, great guy. Here's another question. Okay, this one says, oh, that was about the trip. I'm trying to find another good one. I have so many questions here. All right, here's a good question from my friend Dora. Dora says she's been to the Arctic Circle with her sister. What's the best summer activity in Fairbanks?
I got it. The county fair.
Really?
Oh my God, they have wiener dog races. It's the best.
I just thought you were going to say paddleboarding. They have wiener dog races?
They have wiener dog races in Fairbanks.
And
it is a hoot. They get dressed up and they dress up their dogs. And then when they say go, the dogs, it's like they go everywhere. And that was like a fun part of our trip. We went to Denali and we did all the things you're supposed to do. And they were all great and awesome. But for us, the county fair was just like, you know, it's about – it kind of gets back to being genuine. And you meet people at a county fair who are just being themselves. They're not, you know, they're not entertaining you, right? If you go as a tourist, they're entertaining you. But as you go to county fair, it's people having a fun time on their own. And you really get to meet people in a different way. And so to me, anywhere I've ever been, those kind of experiences are the most important and what lasts with me for years and years, as opposed to going and seeing the wolves on Denali or the big, you know, reindeer and all that.
Hopefully not from a paddleboard. Wolves on a paddleboard would scare me. Listen, so now we have your wife's asking. Now this is his wife who knows him. I can't imagine what kind of response she's expecting from you, Scott. What's the next epic event or adventure for you? Do you have something planned that I don't know about? Is that why is it retirement? Because I don't see you retiring. I think this is your retirement.
I have something planned that she doesn't know about yet. See, so she's kind of fishing.
Are we going to say it live on Tiger Talks?
Yeah. So you know, I've completed the Everglades Challenge 3 times now, and I'm definitely already signed up.
How many miles is that, Scott? How many miles is the Everglades Challenge?
300. Yeah.
And you paddleboard from, is it Tampa through to Miami?
Tampa to Key Largo.
But through the Everglades.
Through the Everglades, yeah.
Alligators.
Out in the ocean, in the intercoastal, alligators.
What's the scariest thing you see on that paddle? Is it a shark? Is it an alligator?
Lightning. Lightning.
Okay, that's a very lightning on a paddleboard sounds scarier than shark.
Yeah, that's.
That's when you paddle really fast.
I haven't committed to anything yet, but one of the things I'm looking at is somebody's talking about doing a trip from Montreal to New York City, and there's a waterway connection. You connect a couple of canals and stuff, and it's
Montreal to New York City.
Yeah.
Like so 500 miles, 400 miles.
I think it's 360. It's not going to be a race, but the person is doing
canal. That's got to. I mean, that should be beautiful through the Canadian countryside coming into New York.
Yeah. She's going to kill me when she hears this, but
I'm not going to show you her next comment. His wife just commented again.
It's just a dream at this point, so I don't know. You know, it's
all right. We have a question from Michael because Michael seems to have some of the best ones. How do you fit that long, lanky body into such a small tent?
I
had to. So.
I sleep on my side and I curl up. I'm not a straight out sleeper anyway, so that's not a problem.
All right. We got a shout out to our friends Diane and her daughter Sweet Pea. Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for watching us. They're also an amazing paddlers and a family we get to spend a lot of time with down at Scott's shop. Like I said, he's built a community. People come from all over. They drive, I think, 5 hours to come and paddle and hang out with us. So Marilyn, my girlfriend, I don't know if she's heard the whole story. She's asking what's the craziest paddleboard story that you and I share. Do you want to tell it?
Without a doubt, you know which one it is. Is that one coming across the bay when the wind was blowing 45 miles an hour?
And I had to take my fin off the paddleboard because the water was too shallow, and I took a deep fin. And no one told me to bring a short fin or an extra fin. I had to take the fin off my board in 35, 40 mile an hour winds, full of gear. There was no turning back.
Circles. I remember you were like, oh.
And then the wind was so strong when it hit my side, it threw me off the board. So I had an inflatable. One of the good things I got to say about Scott is he's always got these crazy ideas. And I'm the kind of guy that I'm like, well, Scott, I can't let you go alone. And there was 7 or 8 of us went to the Everglades this day, I think, right? But 3 of us stayed in the water. Anyway, it was a tough paddle. And it was him and our friend NG and myself. And we get out, there's alligators already. We get in the water, we paddleboard out through like a kind of quiet part of the bay. But once you get past this small protected area, it's just like stuff flying everywhere. And you're like, holy moly, you know? And it was that, okay. And this was probably maybe only 30, 35 miles an hour right there. We knew it was going to get worse. There was a storm coming. It's the perfect time to paddleboard. It's called a downwind. We're safe. We have GPS trackers. We have safety gear. We have each other. We have a map. Don't know where we're going, but it was good. Anyway, my goodness. And then we get to a part in the shallows where Scott and NG were ahead of me, and I got stuck. I had a big board, big fin, and I got stuck. And I had to I only had 1 screw and 1 fin. So I had 1 shot, had to take some deep breaths, had a little bit of prayer, and lay down and plant my body to not let my board flip while I took the fin off. Screwed the screw and the little latch, the connector back in, tucked that deep down in my pants. And then I had on my butt with my feet dragging in the mud, get, what was it, like a half mile or 3/4 mile to you guys or something like that?
Yeah.
Without flipping over while my board's twisting around. And let me tell you, I learned a lot about myself that day. But, you know, and the one thing I can say, talk about life lessons, Scott, that day changed me. It really did. And one thing was having you guys there. And I thought that you'd done something like this before. We'll get into that in a second. But the fact that I could look ahead and I could look forward and I could see someone else doing it. I think in life, it's really important to have mentors. It's really important to have coaches to look up to people. Whether you look up to a public speaker, an author, whoever it is, it's so important in life because there's people that have been down a similar path to you, if not sometimes the same path. Now, I might not have paddled the exact same line as Scott, but I can pay attention to Scott. And if he's getting through clear, I can assume if I have the same gear, same fin setup, same experience, whatever it is that we're talking about in life here, and I can try to map myself around where he's going. And that's what I had to do. I had to look down through all this wind and chop and stuff coming at me and try to find the marks of the other fins. And that's how I got myself through it. But what I learned, the most important part, is in life, first off, I can get through anything because I will, and that's my only choice. I don't have a choice. There is no pause. There is no timeout. There is no rescue. Helicopter wouldn't have come. It wouldn't have come. Not for at least a day or two. It was too dangerous. But the only way to finish anything in life like that's a challenge, is to put your head down, have faith in yourself, and you have to finish it stroke by stroke by stroke by stroke. Period. That's the only way that you'll ever achieve anything that scary and that monumental in life. It's paddle in front of your feet, paddle in front of your feet, foot in front of the other. Just go towards it. You might not know how you're going to get to the end, but you're getting to the damn end. And that's it. And from that moment on, wow, my philosophy in life changed quite a bit that day, Scott. So you want to tell the rest of the story really quick, and I'll start getting on the next question?
Well, it was just the wind was blowing so hard, you really could not do anything but ride the wind. So, I mean, a 5-degree change of course was nearly impossible. And we really did not know where we were going to finish up, but we did know that.
Can you imagine? I'm telling my mom, where are you going? I'm paddleboarding with Scott. Where are you? I'm in the middle of the Everglades with alligators and shit. Yeah, Mom. Where are you going? I don't know. We're just gonna go in the water with Scott and NG. And when we get there, we're gonna get.
With that wind blowing that hard, you really couldn't do too much. We knew we had a whole highway that we wouldn't miss the Keys. We wouldn't miss the highway anyway. We might miss the Keys. We might come in between two islands, but we weren't going to miss the highway. So we knew we had like the backstop, and then we just kind of rode with it until we got close, and then luckily knowing all the different places you can take out and the upper Keys anyway, I was able to determine, when we were a few miles out, because at the last minute it would have been too late. You needed to have at least 3 or 4 miles so that we could trim tab a little bit and make it into that finish. And just like you said, it was about trim tabbing, which is a life lesson for sure, that, you don't have to necessarily wait till the end to make a 90-degree turn. You can make a 5-degree turn early on, and it changes your whole result down the road,
I think that's a big thing. I think I've heard a lot. I mean, exactly what Scott just said. If you want to change something in life, you change it 2 degrees at a time. Aim for 5, right? You get 2, you're good. Whether it's physical fitness, you want to lose some weight, you want to learn how to speak Latin or French or whatever. You want to learn how to be a paddleboard racer. No one's going to go out and be a racer the next day. I don't care how competitive you are. And so true. Trim tab, 5 degrees at a time. I love that. Let me see. The last one we have. Okay, from Diane, who says, Scott's shop is a hangout, and he is a great resource. Yes, he is. He and his wife are great supporters of the community. In return, we love to support his business and love being a part of the community. Like I said, Scott, you have so many fans. And it's been a big lesson, like I said, for a lot of us business owners. And I just love that you're so genuine. I mean, was there a moment when, like have you always kind of been like that? Or was there a moment when you're like, I'm just going to do what I want to do, say what I want to say, be who I want to be, because that's just how it's going to be?
No, I think it's always how I was raised. So my mother and our family has always been very close. And we always try to give everything away we can. So in other words, if you try to keep something together and keep it within yourself, you're not helping anybody else, and you're just holding yourself back. Wow. Whereas I've always tried to teach, when I used to be a contractor. I was building houses. Okay. Several of the people that used to work for me now have very successful businesses doing the same thing, because I would teach them. And then eventually, or Seychelles is another great example. Once you get to a certain point, you got to push these people out and have them find the next level, wherever that is and whatever your endeavors are. But if you share everything you got, then it comes back to you 100 times. So that's always been my philosophy.
Yeah, huge. I'm a big fan of mentoring people as well and helping. Everyone's like, oh, you must be busy. I said, you know what? I'm in the car. I take walks. I'm in the car for sometimes 4 hours a day. That means I have 4 hours that I can not only talk to clients and friends and my mom, but I can talk to you. So if you ever need advice, whether it's paddleboarding, anything, I'm never too busy. Like I live to deal with people. I think Scott and I share this passion in our life. And I think it's part of our ethos is who we are, to help other people and to be there for you. We're kind of running over on time, but this is really good. I'm going to do 2 more quick questions. John Frith is asking, what was the best moment for you of the Yukon 1000? And I think he knows something I don't know. So I don't know. Let's see what he says for John.
John's actually the guy that runs the Yukon 1000. He's an awesome
hey, John.
director. And I hope to go back and do the Yukon 1000 again. If not, maybe the Yukon 2000, John. Yeah. The whole thing.
Oh my God, your wife is murder you, man.
There's a lot left over once you finish in Anchorage. There's still 750 miles, I think, to the coast there. And there's a couple hundred miles at the start that we skipped off. So he kind of dangled that, and Chip and I are kind of stoked about doing it on a team sup. But anyway, the best moment, he knows this because he asked me when I finished, but it's a great story. We get done with the race, and John's like, what was the best part? And I said, the best part for me was it was dusk. Well, it was always dusk because it's kind of like that forever light, but it was during a dusk time, and it had been quiet for a while. And I guess it had been real kind of hectic day for us, but we took like a little side route because the Yukon turns into this like braided mess, and navigating is real complicated. So we took this like little side route that was kind of quiet and out of the waves and wind for a little bit. and we're going through, and it's not very wide. It's only like maybe 50, 60 feet wide right there, whereas other parts it's like 3/4 of a mile wide or whatever. So it's fairly narrow, and we're going in, and it's kind of turning. It's kind of like being in a mangrove trail or whatever. Okay. And Chip, my paddling teammate, he's in front of me, and he's like, I feel like I'm in a bad neighborhood right now because it was just kind of like real quiet and smooth. We passed this place we called it the kill zone. So it's like all these bear prints, and like the whole beach is all torn up, right? And so, so then we're going along. He's like, yeah, this feels like we're in a creepy neighborhood or something. And about 5 minutes later, I kind of sneak up real slowly behind him. I get right up behind him, and he doesn't know I'm there. And I go, well, Chip had been scared of bears the whole time, so I think might have had a little issue. Anyway, it was like the best time part of the whole race, I think. And yeah,
it's kind of hard to beat that. Well, we got John's laughing. I was trying to click on Dragon. What's that?
I just want to say one more thing about the Yukon. John puts on a top-notch event, just like the Everglades Challenge. There's no bending the rules. You follow the rules, you bring your stuff, or you don't get to go, right? And it's about safety, and it's about following, and it makes it easier as a competitor when you say, okay, if I do this, this, and this, I'm good. Whereas if it's like, oh, well, some people get to do this. So I just want to shout out to John that I think, to me, that was one of the best events I've ever been a part of.
Okay. Wow. Well, listen, we're pretty much out of time here now, but thank you, Scott. I mean, such an honor to have you on. You're truly a badass and someone that we all look up to in life and business and paddle boarding. I think just in pushing ourselves overall, I think a lot of people hopefully could take a lot from this chat we had today. The one quote that I have to put on here that Scott always says is paddle yourself to a better place. And, that's it. I think that's the key, right? It's keep on paddling. Know you're always going to get to the end, stroke at a time. 5-degree changes. I mean, that's a huge one. And I think just know that no matter what's going on in your life right now, that things can always be worse and that they also get better. And I think that with movement, with motion, with foresight and thought and intentions, you can always get to a better place. I think that's been something that's been really key in my life is, where your thoughts go, your energy flows. So sometimes, especially in times like this, we have to check ourselves. We have to really think about what are our thoughts, and you can change your thoughts really quickly. Sometimes it's hard to control your first reaction to something, but your second thought you can kind of program yourself for. And you can always step back and think of something positive and think of where you want to go. And sometimes what helps me is putting so much detail into what that final looks like. Even when I was paddling with Scott, I knew that I was going to get to the end. I was probably going to have a little tear in my eye because I get emotional about that kind of stuff. And I was going to jump up on the beach and I was going to hold my paddle in my hand. Then I was going to find a nice cold beer and drink it. But I knew what it looked like. And I knew that it was going to be with my brother Scott and my brother G. And it was so visual in my mind. And that's what kept me going through my scary moments in that day and throughout my life. I focus on this end goal, right? And even though stroke by stroke can change, the conditions around me change, a storm, the wind, I don't stress about that because I'm going to do whatever it takes to paddle myself to a better place. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Scott, man. Just like I said, hey, I'll see you Sunday. Right. So I'll post the details down below. Scott's information's been in and out of the video. I'm going to post it. Check us out on YouTube. The new video blog is Tiger Talks. And anything that you guys think is a topic or a speaker, I'm working on having a Navy SEAL come on as a guest, one of my next guests. Super excited. You talk about the 1,000-mile paddle. He's got some stories as well, similar to that. So thank you again, Scott Baste. Absolute pleasure to have you on. And I'll see you on the water, brother.
Thanks.
See you guys. Wishing you a beautiful and blessed day. Make it amazing.